Hello and welcome back to Crushing Comics. This is the comic show from the Comic Crush. I am Matt Murdoch. With me is Electra. Or maybe not, we don't know. We're also known by our secret identities, Paul and Liz. As I said, this is our comics review show. It's going to be a weird week this week because there was a lot of stuff out. I don't think everything kind of moved us. We're trying to kind of surprise each other with what books we've read this week, just as an experiment. So I don't necessarily know what Liz has read, and Liz doesn't know what I've read. So it will be interesting to see if we read any of the same books. Now, we did go for issue ones as usual, or starts of story arcs. That was the only kind of criteria we followed. This is the way we might do it moving forward into 2022. So, prepare yourself for that. Liz, how are you doing?
Very well. Another fine week in comics.
It is a fine week in comics. You should just get a t-shirt that says that. It's a fine week in comics.
Indeed.
You excited by this week's releases?
There was some fun stuff. There were some, as you said, starts of story arcs, issue ones, that, I had on my, sort of list, when I saw them in previews and things like that. So, I think we'll have plenty to talk about. How about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I always find I'm always excited the night before, and first thing in the morning going up to get the comics. Like I genuinely am. Which at approaching 50, I probably shouldn't be, but there you go. I just am. There, obviously, as we were talking about earlier, there are some weeks when you come away and you're like, it didn't really happen for me this week. And I think that's fine. I think
it is fine. Every week isn't going to be, the start of something that's going to blow your mind, but
no. I've knocked my headphone out there. Sorry. I won't be able to hear Lizzie's dulcet tones. Maybe it'll be a blessing in disguise. We don't know. But not every week is going to blow you away. And also, I'm looking forward to some weeks because there haven't been any cheap weeks this month. Yeah.
No. There's last week.
Absolute.
Yeah, there's been that spate of annuals for over the last 2 weeks. There's every DC book had an annual come out that was like $6.
Yeah.
I only bought a couple, but I did really enjoy the ones I read, but still not easy on the wallet.
And I love DC, but they do seem to have taken Marvel's position now of putting out the most expensive books, whereas a couple of years back, do you remember when Marvel was like, it's an $8 book, it's a $10 book,
and DC was $2.99 across the line, not anymore.
Definitely not anymore. But I think by and large, the stuff you are getting at those price points is good. And then today, like this week, actually, it was a fairly cheap week this week. So I spent 40 odd quid. And I got a trade and a bunch of $4 books, which is about £3.60.
What trade did you pick up?
Well, we are going to talk about it briefly.
Okay.
Rewild by our pal Devin Grayson and Yana Adamovic. I hope I'm saying that right, Yana. Sorry. I have been looking forward to this for a year and a half. Because it has unfortunately gone through a lot of delays. And also I'll have some news regarding Devin Grayson a bit later on for the audience. Shall we get on with the comics?
Let's do that.
So Liz, what was the first book you read this week?
The first book I read this week was, it was Batman 118.
Okay, now I didn't read Batman 118 in a turn up for the book. So this is Joshua Williamson, am I right?
That's right. So James Tynion's run has finally come to an end. He's been writing it for a good couple of years now.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but I just pretty early on into his run, I sort of fell off. No, sort of reflection on him as a writer, it just wasn't floating my boat. I do like a lot of his stuff. I think we've talked about some of it recently. Nice House on the Lake, the, you know, sort of Something is Killing the Children universe, like all that stuff, that horror stuff that he does, I think is great. But his Batman run, for various reasons, I just kind of drifted off from it. So I was kind of ready. Okay, all right, this is a jumping on point. Why don't I check it out? Joshua Williamson is by all accounts, his Flash run is great. He's done lots of other stuff that people really love.
I think he just did Infinite Frontier, and he's got the new one has just come out, which is Justice League Incarnate, which is like the next stage in that story. Yeah, I'm going to shoot. Can I shoot you some questions about this?
Go on.
So it's the storyline where Bruce has left Gotham.
He does not. So yeah, basically, yes. That is what's happening by the end of the book. Yes.
Right.
So you know a little bit about what to expect from it. I didn't.
Yeah. Like I kind of read a little bit of Scuttlebutt in the press and stuff.
Yeah, it's sorry, I'm just actually looking up in the credits. Yeah, so before I should probably give credit to also Jorge Molina on the art, which was really nice. Yeah. Really like his stuff. So the book looks great. To go back to Joshua Williamson, even though I hear tell that he's done all this great stuff, I haven't read a ton of his stuff. So for me, it was like, okay. It's, a way for me to kind of, check him out as a writer as well. And this was like a fun first issue. Again, it's like, bringing in, some ideas left over from Tinian's run. Bruce still doesn't have any money. He's still, operating without his, all his fun toys and, his wealth. So, I like that concept. I'm sure it's been done, more than once, but, and I know it's been done more than once, but it's, it kind of, it's a different,
Well, I think what was significant about Bruce, losing the money this time around was that the Joker took control of his money, and actually, I believe legit took control of Wayne Enterprises. Obviously it didn't last.
Right.
So I guess that concept's good. We've got Lucius Fox ends up with control of the money, I believe.
And also Dick inherits a mountain of money from Alfred.
Because he's now, isn't he now like a multi-millionaire or a billionaire or something?
Yeah, basically. Although he's using the money, to set up like, a charitable foundation under Alfred's name to, sort of protect the less fortunate.
Yeah. So I guess it's all good, interesting stuff. It's all different.
Yeah, you're kind of seeing Dick do that thing that, people complain that Bruce should do, which is just donate all his money to help the less fortunate.
I always find that fascinating in...
Yeah, it's an argument people love to have,
Yeah, and kind of entirely redundant when talking about fictional people, because, like, if you're a long-term follower of Batman, you know that usually a lot of the stories end with him setting up some sort of charity or foundation or something that discourages crime. But there's still crime in Gotham. And hey, I'm not being funny, people. There has to be crime in Gotham.
Yeah, I mean, are you going to be reading? Yeah, exactly. What are you going to read about? But anyway, I digress. Some of the fun things that they play with in this issue is the concept of Batman Inc.
Right.
So, what brings Bruce out of the country is the fact that a number of the various members of Batman Inc. that we've become acquainted with through the years, but also more significantly through Grant Morrison's Batman Inc. run. A lot of those characters basically become accused of murder, and Bruce has to leave the country to find out, what's going on there.
Right.
So it was cool to see those characters pop up. Let me just check which ones it was.
Man of Bats and
Man of Bats, El Gaucho, Batman of China, Dark Ranger, and the Hood.
Because the Batman of China was introduced later, wasn't he? I believe he was in that new Superman run where they had the Chinese Superman, and then they introduced the Chinese Justice League.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's where he comes from. I could be wrong. If someone knows, please drop it in the comments below. Yeah, so I mean, how did you find it as a book overall?
Just real quick, it was a lot of fun. So basically, we get some nice moments between Batman and Oracle, are kind of have a long conversation through the beginning of the book that kind of get some of the exposition out of the way. Dick pops up for a minute, and at the end,
guaranteed he needs to buy from you.
There you go, exactly.
Did you click through first?
Well, no, it was a pleasant surprise though.
Checking for the right wang.
It was great. Totally, made the book for me. Yeah. But what also made the book for me was at the end, a character I did not expect to see appear shows up. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but it's a DC villain that I like a lot. Cool. So I recommend.
You can tell me who it is off air. Don't do it on it. Yeah, so I've got to say, one of the things that stopped me from getting the rest of Tinian's run, because I did get it initially. Like, I think I was getting it every month. I was buying all like the Martina variants, which I've since kind of got rid of. It was just that I'm past that point now where I need to buy every Batman comic. And also, it was just like the trades will be available. I think I'll just get the trades. Although, I couldn't have predicted the wild roller coaster of unavailability that books were going to go through in 2021 and probably into 2022 as well.
It'll always be there. Whenever you feel like getting around to it, you'll have the opportunity,
Sure. And I don't know, it just doesn't feel as essential for me anymore. Although I'm more interested when they're a completed run and you can go, okay, there's Joshua Williamson's mark on Batman. There is Tinian's mark on Batman. And I think sometimes they're better in retrospect than they are monthly. I mean, Grant Morrison's run is a perfect example of that.
Sure. Sometimes it was quite the difficult read.
Like week to week, it was. I mean, not the Batman and Son, but once you got into
RIP was like
it was just
bananas. Yeah, completely bananas. Whereas you read it retrospectively and it's like a masterpiece.
Oh, absolutely.
And
to be clear, he was always writing a masterpiece. It's just that I don't. I'm not.
It's a prime example. It is a prime example of a book that, like, really, week or month to month rather. You couldn't foresee what he was building until it was all built, basically. But anyway, I would say, I enjoyed this, and I'm kind of like jazzed. Okay, maybe I'll be reading the, ongoing Batman book for a while. I don't know.
Yeah, cool.
So how about you? What was the first thing you read this week?
Well, I've got to say, I've actually read like quite a few books this week, principally because I'm not sleeping at the moment. So I'm getting up at like 4 and 5 a.m. And once I've had a cup of tea, I'm raring to go. I actually had the almost unheralded, unknown pleasure today of going into a coffee shop and sitting in there having a coffee and actually reading through about 3 or 4 comics.
Yeah, joy.
I don't get to really do anymore. It's but the thing I read that I absolutely adored was One Star Squadron.
Okay. Now
did you read this?
I have the beautiful Steve Pugh variant.
Yes,
isn't that gorgeous? Like, I love that cover.
I don't think they had any copies left of the Steve Pugh variant. I really love that variant though.
It's so nice.
And I actually forgot all about it. That's the weird thing until you just pulled it up there, because that was the first cover I saw for this book when they started talking about it a few months back. But yeah, we didn't have any left at Gosh. So when I went in on Wednesday morning to get my comics, this was a bag of fun. Like
I loved it.
I might talk about this a bit more in an article on the Crush, but Mark Russell is carving out this weird little niche for himself where he takes defunct characters. I mean, obviously a lot of writers, their thing is, hey, I'm going to take a defunct character and totally reinvent for you.
Right.
But what Mark Russell seems to be doing is reinventing downwards, which I think is a real kind of, I mean, a lot of them are, in retrospect, slightly naff characters anyway. Although Red Tornado had his big moment a few years back in Brad Meltzer's Justice League.
That's right.
Right? And the big major first arc of that book was Red Tornado. Here we have him as like the poor man's Vision, desperately kind of searching for humanity whilst managing this bureaucratic. I mean, what are they? Are they a talent agency? Or are they?
It's sort of like a talent
line?
agency, yeah. Like it's sort of rent a superhero. That's basically the premise. It's all these like kind of C and D list, heroes
the
that
Heckler.
The Heckler, the Minuteman, GI Robot. All these characters that, even DC readers, like a lot of them will struggle to recall, but they have been around.
But you also have Power Girl.
Right. Who's the notable exception to the rule. It's like, what's she doing there? Even though, Power Girl, she kind of goes in and out of fashion in terms of like, her popularity. But, she stands out here as like, oh, okay, that's Power Girl. What's she doing there? And they even address that in this first issue.
Yeah, and also I think the thing with Power Girl, because of the look of Power Girl, it becomes a difficult sell in 2021. And I remember being in Orbital, being behind the till, and a young woman came up with her parents, and I mean, like, I guess she must have been a teenager, and she was, there was like a Power Girl figure or book just behind me on the till that we were kind of displaying. And
I know what cover you're talking about. I know.
And she
I
really
bet I know what comic.
She really did not like it.
Yeah, there's a comic. I can't remember what cover. I know exactly. So it's the one where she's like lying back, and you just see the boobs. Like, it's sort of from this vantage point. That's
and
very.
I mean this respectfully. It was probably an Adam Hughes cover.
It probably was. It probably was. But yeah, that outfit is pure cheesecake, and it's like, but people, there's like great outcry anytime they get rid of the boob window. Like of her costume, because it has happened, and fans do not like it.
It's tough to make arguments for and against, I think. But anyway, look, Power Girls. Right. I'm not gonna wade into.
We won't get into it. Yeah.
I think I did make an argument, not necessarily for, but I did say, but hey, look. The costume is not the character, and this and this about the character. I did try and say to this kid, be reassured, she is a really good character.
Yeah,
it's just, she's always been done this way. So yeah, D and C and Z list superheroes. You can see Red Tornado trying to kind of talk down one of his useless charges.
The Minuteman, that was very funny. Like, who has a tantrum, basically.
The thing I like about it is it talks about, Red Tornado trying to discover his humanity, but you realize that kind of he's already past that. He's, there's that great scene with Superman in the beginning where he's kind of, I'm still learning to be human. And of course, he's now come out the other end of that, where he's doing the most human thing possible. He's bored and he's trying to help people, unfulfilled, and he's having to deal with mundanity. Right. Which is the one thing I always find great in superhero stuff is when superheroes have to deal with mundanity and have to deal with bureaucracy and have to deal with the stupid freaking rules that we all have to put up with.
Right, yeah, things like Yelp reviews, like, like Minuteman, he's like, well, you got to bring up your star rating, go do a couple of mall appearances,
and that's the kind of level they're at. It did really thrill to also see Gangbuster. Now, I think there have been 2 Gangbusters, one of which, spoiler for a comic that's over 30 years old, is actually Superman having a nervous breakdown. So it's interesting to see Gangbuster. If you go back and look at the Superman Exile storyline, Superman has a nervous breakdown and goes out in the streets at night in Metropolis as Gangbuster.
Okay, I did not know this.
Okay, well, it's a big. So. It's one of the things that leads him to exile himself off to space. He has this kind of not nervous breakdown. He starts. Basically, he's not sleeping. I'm also not sleeping, but I am not going out at night as Gangbuster, I promise you. And he, and he, it's one of the things that causes him to fling himself off in space. The Exile storyline, if you can get it in the omnibus, is awesome. It's one set of comics that I always kind of buy, sell off, buy again, reread every few years. I kind of like, I should
grab that because like I don't read enough Superman really. Like I did, like every once in a while I will like, find something that, that is like the Superman story from me. But by and large, I'm not like a Superman reader per se.
Right. Yeah, I mean, me neither.
But like I like when people point out good storylines for me that I might not have even.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good late 80s, early 90s. So speaking of late 80s, early 90s stuff, obviously the thing you've got to get into this is the JLI and that kind of era.
That's vibe,
really, And also if you've read Mark Russell's work on Snagglepuss Exit Stage Left, which I understand is something of a modern masterpiece.
I've never read it. I mean to read it, and I also mean to read his Flintstones run. Is supposed to be excellent.
Yeah,
he's very good at like sort of like political commentary and like kind of observation, sort of of like kind of the parallels between these characters, that seem absurd and like our society, which is what is going on here. Like, sorry, carry on.
Sorry, I just wanted to say quickly before I forget, the thing that really got me was his Wonder Twins run, which I think is superb. And
I never read Wonder Twins. I have heard good things.
Into, and again, it's these kind of minor superheroes, and he retargets them and reuses them. And guess what? They're totally inane and totally kind of superficial, but it's still good stuff.
And I wanted to mention too, this is One Star Squadron is obviously a play on the All-Star Squadron. Which I think in the comics, and I did, correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't actually read the stuff. But the idea was that it was like, the president drafting superheroes, to sort of volunteer basically and, and offer up their services kind of, so it's like, there's the famous cover with like an Uncle Sam saying like, America wants you to, be a superhero, whatever.
And
whereas here it's like, they're sort of, they're doing it for hire. They're, it's corporate, rather than patriotic or,
I think tonally you are looking at stuff like the JLI, except with the difference there is that those guys were real kind of A to B listers, and really the comedy relief was provided by Booster Gold and Guy Gardner and Blue Beetle. Here everyone's an idiot.
Yeah, except for Red Tornado and Power Girl, who you know.
Well, Power Girl, especially by the end, we see something very interesting there, which I don't want to give away. I do want to give a shout out to Mark Russell, obviously writer on this, Steve Lieber, the artist, who did a fantastic job on Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen.
Well, I also want to mention Steve Lieber in terms of a book weirdly similar to this. Now, Steve Lieber has, done multiple collaborations with the also very funny and satirical Nick Spencer.
Yes,
and
I know what book you're going to go for.
Superior Foes of Spider-Man, which is also kind of a bunch of like C/D list villains in this case, who, form a team, and it's all about the mundanity of like, just kind of like, oh, well, it's lots of them sitting around, kind of, the in between periods, of fighting crime or not more causing crime really. But Steve Lieber has a great sense for comedy. He did The Fix with Nick Spencer as well, which was also very funny. He's just that kind of storyteller.
Yeah.
Like here, there were moments where I like actually laughed, like, when G.I. Robot is at like a little kid's birthday party talking about his kill count. It's genuinely funny.
This was I got stares yesterday because actually, I was saying the rare chance to sit and have coffee and read comics. I did actually do that yesterday as well. But I also managed to sit and pump out an article while I was doing it. So yesterday I was killing time waiting to meet a friend, and I had a ton of time because I went up really early in the morning, and I sat there and I was just howling with laughter in a coffee shop reading a comic, and people stared, and it was a bit embarrassing.
It was funny. It was honestly funny, and it's like that. I don't go out of my way necessarily for comedy books, but this is it's genuinely funny.
Yeah, and
very clever.
I like them in a certain context. Genuinely, I think Mark Russell is a master at getting, as you said, getting stuff in there and making you laugh. Yeah. I believe Mark Russell did Second Coming as well, which I keep starting to read, but something always interrupts me, and I need to kind of go back and finish that first book. Dave Stewart does colors on this. Dave Sharp doing the letters, all doing a great job. Dave Stewart is never not one of the best colorists in the world. I like this. I like the pathos.
I think this was my book of the week, honestly.
Yeah. Me too. I'm going to go into this a bit more in depth, probably in an article on the website. If you want to check that out a bit later, guys, as soon as I've got time to finish writing. Liz, what else did you go for this week?
The other book that I picked up this week, that I don't know if you did, but it's a topical book, Marvel event book, Devil's Reign. This has been, they've been building up to this for a little while. Now, funnily enough, I haven't been reading the stuff that leads up to it. I haven't been reading Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil. Since really early in his run. I will go back and read it eventually because, by all accounts, it's very good. I love a good Daredevil run. In fact, I have just started rewatching the Daredevil series.
Oh, nice.
So I think I'm going to watch season 1 in preparation for an appearance that may or may not take place in one of the upcoming films.
I don't know if I have the patience to wade through those again, because I always think there are at least 1 or 2 dead episodes in those series, and I love season 1. I think it's like rock solid. I think it's just brilliant. But anyway, we're long story short, I was in a Daredevil mood anyway, so I was like, all right, I will pick up Devil's Reign. People will be asking me about it in the comic shop. Yeah.
So I read it, and even though obviously I haven't been following the current chronology, it's easy enough to just kind of get caught up. What it really is, seemingly, is kind of like, there's a little bit of Civil War vibe to it because Wilson Fisk as the Kingpin basically puts a ban on superheroes. He makes it illegal activity.
Yeah, this is something he's been trying to do for a while, I think, in the Daredevil book, because he becomes mayor of New York. So, yeah, I mean, in the few chapters of Zdarsky's Daredevil book that I've read, that is going on.
Right.
So it is something they've been building up to. I didn't pick this up simply because Marvel event, and I never buy Marvel events as a single issue.
Yeah, sure.
Just because, I mean, I can't remember what the event was that was like. They did an article on some website where they went, yeah, if you buy every book in this event, you're looking at $170 or something insane. And it was just like, no. I much prefer the Panini reprints of Marvel event books.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I picked this up out of, just kind of like, well, I kind of feel like dipping back into a little bit of Daredevil. And also, it is a crossover, and it does kind of remind me of Civil War in that way. Like, obviously there's no kind of big opposing forces at play, like in Civil War, but you do have all the superheroes being, sort of rounded up and arrested, and and then a bunch of them are, kind of on the run, sort of fleeing the law, and so it reminded me of Civil War in that way. And it's got a good little cast of characters that we appear to be following. You've got Iron Man, Reed and Sue Richards, Spider-Man, both Spider-Mans, Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. So they're all kind of featuring, and Captain America, and a version of the Thunderbolts as well, led by John Walker.
Wow.
So who are kind of acting on the side of the police, under Fisk, and helping round up the sort of other heroes.
Okay. I mean, again, I'd like to read it, but just not week to week, I think.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was also a way to kind of catch up on what's going on with Daredevil, because, I haven't read it in 2 years or something, and it's kind of sums up everything you need to know.
Right. Yeah.
Nicely.
I mean, I think it's been a good book under Zdarsky, what I've read. And I think, again, it's one of those things where when it goes into thicker trades that have 2 volumes per trade rather than just 6 issues, it's certainly something I'd like to get.
And Marco Cicchetto's a great artist. I love his stuff. He I think he's been on this book for a while. I think he's been on Daredevil for a while, and possibly through Zdarsky's whole run. I can't actually recall, but
I will try and, if I remember. Sorry, let's go on.
His stuff is great. What were you going to say?
If I remember, I will try and put in the links below the review we did of a review I did rather of volume 3 of this series. Because I did that way back, and it's probably worth revisiting. Yeah, I mean, do you think you're going to get the whole thing? Will you get all the interlinking books, or are you just going to stick with the main?
I never get all the interlinking books. That's that's just not something I do. It's I like to read the main story, and then if I end up reading other stuff, if I really like the event and I want to go back and read the other stuff, then I will concern myself with that. But I only read, I think the main book is always enough. I don't think, anybody should feel beholden to pick up every, book that crosses over. So I won't be. However, I probably will follow the main story, and even if I only read a couple of issues and then decide to read the rest in trade, I might do that. It really depends. But I liked it as a first issue. Totally, solid first issue that got me interested. And I suspect if you're reading the Daredevil book, you have been reading the Daredevil book, it's even more exciting.
Yeah. I mean, events really frustrate me. I think there's way too many, but obviously they make money for the publishers, so I understand why they do them. I kind of wish they'd have the fortitude to try a year or two without them, but unfortunately, like variants, like
they want to sell
variants,
comics, they
and I think you can, but just maybe let some more experimental writers get on those books and do some interesting stuff, and because as we've learned in comics, you can always walk it back.
Sure.
And comics as an art form is the master of walking it back,
Oh yeah.
and undoing, and so
yeah, Devil's Reign, worth checking out.
Sure. Can you just give us a rundown of who's on that book?
Okay, well, it's Chip Zdarsky, obviously writing. He's been writing Daredevil for ages. Let me find my credits page. Marco Cicchetto on the art, as we mentioned. And let me just see who else we got. We got color artist Marcio Menez, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I might not be. And Clayton Cowles on letters.
Clayton always does a great job.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. As they all do. Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
No favorites. So I just want to give a quick mention before we dive into the last sort of chunk of the show. I do want to give a quick mention to this because this is Rewild by Devin Grayson and Yana Adamovic. It's from Burger Books. The letters are by Sal Cipriano. The reason I want to mention this is both of us are huge Devin Grayson fans. In my opinion, and maybe yours too, Liz, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Devin Grayson should have been running the Bat universe back in the early 2000s. Like, I genuinely think she should have been like top
the architect. Yeah, universe. For sure. Yeah, I love the work that she did through those, like, the kind of early 2000s. She did like incredible work on a bunch of different Bat books. She did my favorite Nightwing run. Which is just excellent. Never ever collected. For whatever reason, they really have not collected it in trade.
They've done it in haven't they done it in like the thin trades? Don't you have those?
Like they did a couple of those, but actually most of it I don't think exists in trade form. You have to get the singles, but you usually can find them.
And so I went through my boxes of Nightwing stuff and various other Catwoman bits because Devon's Catwoman Titans. I took out everything I had, and I had a lot less than I thought I did. I was really annoyed.
I think I have. I mean,
you've got a bigger
most of her DC work.
I mean, I certainly have the Gotham Knight stuff, which is a masterpiece.
That is incredible. Yeah, and the fact that they haven't brought that back in trade is
well, actually, they have. In fact, that's how I kind of started. So I should say, but first, we're going to circle back to this in just a second. So I was having a conversation with someone on Twitter. We're going to have an interview with Devin Grayson, is what I'm trying to get to. Sorry. But there is going to be an interview with Devin Grayson. It won't be a video interview, though. Just for various technical reasons and timing issues, we can't get together to do a video interview. Devin is really busy at the moment, and we just can't get it together before Christmas. It has been a sort of roller coaster year and a half of every now and then Devin or myself will jump on the other's DMs and we'll start talking about doing an interview. It's been lovely chatting to her because she is one of my heroes in comics.
Me too.
Genuinely.
Me too. Massively.
So unfortunately, it is an email interview, but that's fine. You are hopefully going to get an in-depth interview in the next week or so, or next couple of weeks. We're about to sort of start sending off the questions to her as soon as I finish reading this book. She did send us digital copies, but I wanted to buy and support this book. and I'm going to read the physical in the next couple of days. So the reason I got talking to Devon was because I was telling someone, I think, oh God, why is his name gone? He's such a good pal. It's driving me mad. Why is it gone?
Who were you talking to? Like,
I can't believe it. It's actually gone, but he's actually a really good friend of mine. We've worked together a bunch, and I can't remember his name. From Comic-Con. You remember?
Liam or?
Yeah, Liam. Sorry, I don't know why his name. I've got such a bad memory. I'm so tired, guys. Sorry. So yeah, Liam was talking about Batman runs, I think, and I jumped on and went, "Hey, if you can get it, go get Devin Grayson stuff on Gotham Knights, because that's a masterpiece." And she actually did something I never thought I'd really see with the character, and I loved it. And but it sadly, hey, it's not collected, and they don't seem to ever bring it out in trade. And Devin jumped on and went, "Oh, actually, no, it's out. It's coming out." And in fact, it has been out for quite a while. So the first 24 issues of her run are collected in trade at the moment.
Unbelievable. See, I'm sure this happened in my like weird year and a half of not working in a comic shop.
I missed it, so.
Right. Wow. I really hope it's still available, because I have all the single issues, but I'd love to have it in trade as well.
They should be easily available. So one is called Transference, which I think is the first one. I can't remember what the second one's called. But it contains, 24 issues of her run. And I think one or two of those might be a guest writer. But that, for me, is the Devin Grayson masterpiece. But this book is about it's set in the sort of now, and it's about a giant sort of mega complex about to be built on public land, like on what was once, green and verdant land. And what happens is a sort of emissary from the land of Fae turns up, and she's a magical creature, she's a changeling, and she makes a demand, which is, don't put this thing up, build a park instead, or the fairy people are going to wage war on you. So it's got an ecological issue to it. It's been really great so far. I'm going to get through it as quick as not. I want to rush it, but I want to talk to Devin about it. I mean, I can't, really give voice to how much her comics mean to me. They mean a staggering amount, and I know to you as well.
Yeah.
And I really hope that when we actually get to sit down and talk about this book and review it and properly and stuff, we can really kind of do it justice. But it's great to see her doing more stuff. I hope one day she goes back and gets to do more Bat stuff.
I would give my left arm, honestly, that would be the dream, is for her to be back in the Bat, sort of corner of the DC universe. So, perhaps when we get to interview her, maybe we may glean some insight into that, or maybe not. So either way,
we've got to try and get some of the questions off this week. She's very kindly agreed to give us some time to kind of answer those questions and come back to us. But in talking to her over the last few months, it's just been like a dream come true for me. So yeah, I've been gushing with sort of praise of Devin's work, and I know you feel the same way. So just quickly, we do have to mention something very sad that's come out of the comics world this week, which is George Perez has made an announcement that he has pancreatic cancer, stage 3 pancreatic cancer, and he's only got 6 months left to live. This is absolutely, freaking heart-wrenching.
Really heartbreaking. Yeah, so sad. We had the good fortune to meet him once in the shop,
and he was a lot of fun. He was
lovely.
And the thing is, it's like, when he walked, I remember when he walked in, I think you were down the other end of the shop, and I was kind of at the front, and I kind of like, shit, that's George Perez. I know that's George Perez. And I was very coy about it because it's like, I don't want to lose it in front of,
Right.
George Perez. And I kind of just went, oh, hi, how are you? And blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. And da, 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 da. And there was somehow we got onto the conversation about art and doing art. And I kind of just went, oh, you're a comic artist yourself. And it's like, I know you are. I'm not.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sure he knew you knew who he was too, probably.
Yeah. And his wife kind of teased us a little bit. She went, and you didn't know who he was when he came in. It's like, yeah, I knew he was. I'm just really shy. But he took a picture with us. He talked to us for a little bit. He signed some books. He just a lovely, lovely guy. And
he really, yeah.
He retired a couple of years back from comics.
Well, I think he's had problems with his eyes, his eyesight.
And now, this terrible bit of news. It's really gutting.
It is really
gutting. My heart goes out to his wife and children, and there's nothing you can say that's going to comfort them. Really, in this situation, the outpouring of love for his work on the last few days on sort of social media has been staggering, and it just goes to show. I mean, for my part on the Comic Crush, I did mention, Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I read very late in the day. I only read a few years ago, but it seeing his illustrations and how definitively he drew the characters, and you instantly kind of then start to learn who those characters are. And it taught me so much, in terms of who these people, these characters that you previously didn't know were. And
I mean, his style is so iconic, and so many modern creators, really owe him a debt in terms of influence. And all of them are coming out and saying so. As you said, there's just a huge outpouring from creators saying, George Perez was my, inspiration and my, sort of idol, and so much of my work is based on his work.
And one of the things that sorry
he's massively influential, and he's the creator of so many incredibly iconic storylines and runs. One of the things I love the most that I saw on Twitter, kind of being retweeted, are all these pictures of his interactions with his fans, which some of that was just great. It's like, honestly, like, it, even though it's such sad news, it put like a big smile on my face to see all these pictures of him doing that Death of Superman or Death of Supergirl pose, which just cracked me up so much. Like, it's him holding like a cosplayer who's dressed as Supergirl, then like some cosplayer dressed as Supergirl holding him, in the pose. Like, it's hilariously funny if you happen to, but he's notorious for being incredibly kind and incredibly interactive with his fans.
Yeah.
That's a thing that I've always heard about him, and that people always say about him is how much he loves his fans, and how willing he is to kind of go above and beyond at conventions, things like that, which just tells you a lot about his character, and it will be a great loss.
Yeah, and I think it's one we'll really feel for a long time. Like, when Stan Lee died, and it's just one of those. I mean, I'm sure comics did not give George Perez cancer, but I think that there's something about artistic, obsession and hard work that I think takes its toll on people's bodies. And you do see a lot of artists, they go too soon. I'm not saying there's a connection between the two. I'm just saying that I wish that the industry would kind of do more to help and provide for the people that build it.
I agree with that.
I mean,
yeah.
You know, and again, I'm not saying it angrily. I'm not going, oh, DC, you didn't do this, Marvel, you didn't do this, you know, whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there is something about that work that takes a physical toll.
Definitely. It definitely does.
I would, I don't know if it's kind of the intensity of deadlines or this or that, or, you know,
it's physically grueling. Like, you know, being an artist is physically quite, you know, punishing.
But yeah, I hope that the industry kind of wakes up to and maybe starts to do more. For one thing that someone was talking about was, and it was a comics creator, I believe, was saying, "Hey, okay, Marvel and DC, can you bury the hatchet and reissue JLA Avengers?" And which is written by Kurt Busiek, one of the masters of comics as far as I'm concerned, and drawn by George Perez. And you know, surely the reissues of that would give his family a nice sort of nest egg. And you know, I actually would like to see a sort of George Perez library that people could buy and maybe, you know, where there's a bit more of a profit split for his family, and you know, they only need to do it once, like one run of stuff to kind of help them out and give them a bit more to kind of function with. I hope that they'll kind of do that, but who knows? I don't know. Like just
one of the artists saying really wonderful things about George Perez before this news even broke was Phil Jimenez, and there is one more book I wanted to mention before we wrap up the show.
Definitely.
Because George Perez, one of his most famous runs of comics and one of the most influential is his Wonder Woman run.
And we did briefly touch on this book a couple of weeks back before the break. But yeah, go ahead, Liz.
Phil Jimenez is a huge Wonder Woman fan and a huge George Perez fan. And he came out on Twitter just as Wonder Woman Historia was coming out, which was last week, not this week, but I still want to mention it because we didn't get to do the show last week. And it he gave all the credit, you know, basically he said this book wouldn't, you know, exist in the way that it does without the work of George Perez. And, you know, gave this really, you know, lovely tweet about how inspired he had been by George Perez's Wonder Woman work, going into the creation of Wonder Woman, Historia, the Amazons, written by Kelly Sue DeConnick, with, you know, art obviously by Phil Jimenez. I honestly think this is one of the most beautiful books I've ever looked at.
Yeah.
I don't staggeringly gorgeous.
I don't think I've seen something as dense visually in a long time. Especially now that a lot of art lends towards decompression. And a lot of storytelling lends towards decompression. This is not a decompressed book. This is an intense kind of experience.
The level of detail is just like mind-boggling. You know, it is just, you know, I've always loved Phil Jimenez as an artist. I think he does great work. You know, I'm a huge fan. But this is like, you know, probably.
I think this might. I mean,
I think he's completely outdone himself. You know?
So, and I think so. Phil does a lot of books. He seems like a lovely guy. I only know him from online, very brief online exchanges. You know, when we did the interview with Kelly Sue a few weeks back, when I did the interview with Kelly Sue, which is still on there, and a lot of people are looking at it. Please go look at that interview because that interview went to unexpected places for me, and you know, we went kind of on safari, and we went all over the place. And at one point, Kelly reads from the book. It's wonderful. So he has been very forthcoming with his praise for Kelly Sue. anytime I tweet that interview, he retweets it, which is really kind of him. This book was originally solicited, and I didn't know this at the time, with the first run of Black Label stuff. So it was supposed to be Batman Damned, this, and something.
Wow.
It took 3 years for him to finish because the art was so intense, and also then towards the end there were publishing delays, COVID delays, shipping delays. But my understanding is that he was supposed to be doing all 3 issues of the first volume, because there's supposed to be like 3 volumes in total, 9 books. But because of the intensity of what he's doing, that's changed up. So it's now going to be Gene Haar on the second book, who also is a terrific guy. Remember we met him at Portsmouth?
He was lovely.
And it's then going to be, excitingly, Nicholas Scott on book 3, who is someone I've really wanted to see to return to kind of Wonder Woman for a long time, and is herself a complete, master artist. I feel. I think her rebirth Wonder Woman stuff, and she's a Wonder Woman fan as well. Like I believe when she was younger, she used to cosplay as Wonder Woman a lot. And I'd love to talk to her at some stage, and Jean, in fact. But do
and Phil Jimenez
and Phil Jimenez. I'm not sure he'll come out. Like he's clearly very, very busy.
So is he? What is he going to be doing future issues?
I don't know. I don't know if he'll go back to monthly books after this. Again, I like the amount of energy and time this must have taken.
I mean, it was worth every minute of the 3 years. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. It is what it reminds me of a bit is like kind of some of that 90s Vertigo, where artists like Dave McKean and like people would do just experimental things. It looked more like fine art, in a way, than comics art.
There's one there's a double page spread in this of all these urns, and each one of those urns has a different illustration and is telling a different story on it.
It is wild, the level of detail.
It's extremely ornate and complex, and
the coloring is just so beautiful too. I mean,
did he do his own color?
I have no.
So it's Hi. So he actually took 3 colorists for this. So Hi-Fi, Arif Prianto, and Romulo Fajardo Jr. Clayton Cowles is the letterer, by the way. Just it'll blow you away. And the thing is, guys, when you get it, if you get it, take the time to don't bother reading other comics. just
sit with that. Honestly, because I'm not a Wonder Woman reader, really. I dip in and out, but probably even less than as I earlier said, I'm not much of a Superman reader. I'm less of a Wonder Woman reader than that. However, you don't need to be a Wonder Woman reader to read this. Really, what it's getting into is a lot of Greek mythology stuff. That you may or may not have an inkling of some of that already. And obviously it does. The Wonder Woman mythos is very important to it. As well, obviously, but you can follow it without having ever read a Wonder Woman comic, and you will have a very satisfying, I think, experience doing so. I thought this was great work on Kelly Sue's part, incredible work on Phil Jimenez's part. Just a really, really great, sort of installment into the Wonder Woman canon and body of work.
Yeah.
So if you're not a Wonder Woman reader, pick it up anyway. I can, say that firsthand.
Definitely. So we've got 50 seconds and we're dead on an hour.
Oh, wow.
So do take a look at everything on the Comic Crush right now. There's loads of stuff, loads of articles coming this week, I hope, depending on my workload. It's intense as always, especially towards the end of the year. It got busier, not easier. I wish it had got easier. In terms of videos on this channel, you can find a really good chat with me and Keith about Superman and Lois, which I really enjoyed doing, and it's been quite popular with you guys. So I'm really pleased to see that. It's a great series on BBC iPlayer. You should check it all out now. You can also find our Hawkeye reaction show, which is going on right now. We're recording another episode of that straight after this, which will be out Friday. I hope you guys are enjoying that. I'd really love more of you to kind of check it out, because we have a lot of fun on that show. And I just love more of you to check it out. Please do give it a look. If you're watching this and you enjoy us on this, go check that out. But of course, it is very spoilerific. The Superman chat is not a spoiler chat. We managed somehow, I don't know how we did it, to not do spoilers for the Superman chat. So do give that a look. Thanks for tuning in as always, guys. Thank you to everyone listening on the podcast. It's lovely to see that more of you are tuning in on the podcast. The numbers are going up there, and I'm really happy with that. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen or watch us. Liz is thrilled with it, as you can probably tell.
But of course.
So it's been fun. I mean, obviously not for me, because I have to work with Liz. But
it's been a joy.
I had to get one in this week, Liz. Actually, funny enough, I went for a drink with Keith the other night. We went out to see a movie, and he went, "Oh, you give Liz such a hard time on the podcast." And I went, "Are you kidding me? You don't know what I have to put up with off air."
I am charm personified. I don't know what you're talking about.
Genuinely, guys, you don't know what I have to put up with off air. But he was really afraid. I do just want to say that when you see me say mean crap to Liz, it's just for fun. Like, this is just how we talk to each other. And we've been doing this for about a decade. None of it is serious. None of it is serious. You know, I always
it's our repartee. It's our repartee.
And I always love doing these podcasts with Liz. Not as much as I love doing them with other people, of course. But hey, you can't have everything.
Oh, I'm your favorite, really.
That'll be in inverted commas, right? I mean,
on that note.
Bye, Liz. It's been fun. See you guys. Thanks for watching.